It's time to talk AEW Dynamite for November the 15th. Oh boy. But before we get into it, we got news and notes. First, Tony Khan wants us to all talk about who he signed in the tweet that he put out. So the tweet goes as follows. AEW has agreed to terms with one of the world's best wrestlers, a pro who is known plus respected by virtually every AEW fan. They'll come to LA to sign their contract this Saturday. Then he supports Full Gear. Okay, so it's a wrestler. It's a pro who is known and respected by virtually every AEW fan, which means it's probably not a huge star. All right, so that takes us, well, for starters, let's do a little bit of Columbo here, a little bit of investigation. Well, 90 days is not up, so it's not anybody who WWE released recently. The language he used says that it's a pro who is respected by virtually every AEW fan. It means AEW fans specifically, which means it's probably somebody who is either from Japan or Mexico or on the indies. Again, I know what everybody originally thought, because I thought the same thing. I thought, okay, he's talking about Mercedes. But he would have said, a huge star that's known the world over or something to that effect. I don't think he would undersell it if it was Mercedes. I think it would also be underselling it if it was Will Ospreay. And to me, for starters, I don't think Will Ospreay is that big of a deal. But you also have to take into account Will Ospreay, his contract has not expired yet. It don't expire until February. So, not likely to be Will Ospreay. What about CM Punk? It will also be underselling it if it was a CM Punk return, because he is more than just a pro who is virtually respected by all AEW fans. I don't know if that's good language to, especially since he split the audience so vociferously upon leaving. I think CM Punk would be a bigger deal. So Mercedes, Will Ospreay, and CM Punk, they would be a bigger deal. It can't be nobody from WWE because the 90 days has not expired. So that leaves us with high-level indie wrestlers and some guys from Japan or Mexico, etc. And perhaps somebody that we're not thinking about is their contract has expired. And it's possible, because I can't think of any huge stars who are currently free agents. The language that he's using makes me think it would be like Claudio or somebody he's already got on his roster. A Claudio Castagnoli or something like that, where it's somebody worth talking about, but it's nobody who's going to really shake the roster up in any bit. And to be quite honest, they need something a little bit more than just another wrestler. Matter of fact, they need a creative overhaul. They don't really need any more wrestlers. They've got as many wrestlers as a company could possibly have. They don't really need more wrestlers. What they need is better creative. But this is what they're attempting to sell the pay-per-view on. I mean, if you're not bought in on Full Gear right now, then hey, maybe we can get you hooked by telling you there's going to be a new signing that's going to pop up and going to leave you a couple of days to speculate. And then, the signing will happen. But they've done these pay-per-view signings before, and it's almost always been older WWE's talent, like, Christian, I think, popped up at the pay-per-view once. I think Edge popped up at a pay-per-view, Mark Henry, Big Show. I don't think we've had like a legitimate, Danielson, I think. Danielson or Adam Cole, they were legitimate sort of pickups that came through the pay-per-view. I'm not going to say that whoever it is no good or whatever. I'm just saying I can't think of anybody who is currently a free agent who would change AEW too drastically. I don't think so. But there is an inkling that it could possibly be Mystico. How about that? Wouldn't it be? Now, the reason why I would say it could be Mystico is because, it would be underselling it a little bit if it was Mystico. Now, it doesn't mean it has to be exclusive. he could probably still work Mexico, but also work in AEW as well as have an AEW contract. But the reason why I feel like it would be underselling is because WWE fans, we I think from the Rampage match, people kind of was like, we don't really care about Mystico. So I think speaking a AEW, specifically could be a big deal, but I think it would leak. I think it would leak if it was Mystico. So I don't think it'll be him. And plus, I don't think he'll want to leave Mexico, which, it could be a dual thing like Kota Ibushi. He signed a contract to AEW, but he doesn't leave Japan. He only wrestles outside of Japan sometimes. So it could be Mystico. He's a big enough star, what it will matter to the AEW fan base. And they already do respect him because a lot of them know Mexican Lucha Libre Pro Wrestling. So I'm not going to say it's Mystico, but that would be a very close guess for me. Most everybody else, I can't imagine who it could be. And I wouldn't pay $50 to try to figure out who it is. But I will know, of course. We all going to know eventually. All right. Second note, MJF comment. So MJF goes on Twitter and pretty much embodies the don't take advice meme that AEW has started, but he tried to add a little nuance to it to make it a little bit more interesting. So he says, if you've been at a job for a small number of years, but at a high level for the majority of it, you don't have to listen to dumb MFers that talk down to you and say they know better because they've been at the job for a large number of years, but at a low level for a majority of it. Respect everyone, but don't let anyone sun you, ever. So then fans rightly noted that you have a guy back there named Jerry Lynn, who, was never a huge star. And MJF responded, I wouldn't call WWE, WCW, TNA, ECW, ROH, and GWF low level. Study the sport you love. So apparently he's trying to say that there's a long-term indie wrestlers are the guys that you shouldn't be listening to. So apparently there's like some agents or whatever backstage who are probably indie wrestlers and they're trying to give you advice, but you're on a higher level than them, and they're like, I've been in the business for a long time, kid. And you're like, well, I've never seen you on TV. You never worked at a major wrestling promotion. Jerry Lynn at least was a world champion. He was ECW world champion, even though he was also a job guy in WCW and WWF. But he was also a top guy in TNA, so, tomato, I guess. But I think this kind of embodies the MJF comment, embodies what has been going on in AEW. Is that while I agree with the last statement about not letting people sun you, you absolutely should not let people put their arm around you if they don't know what they're talking about. But at the same time, just because pro wrestling is a business in which people are put in positions like chess pieces. Sometimes it's a meritocracy. A lot of times it's nepotism. But just because somebody didn't make it doesn't mean they don't know what they're talking about. And so you have to be judicial with this information and with this kind of commentary. If somebody never quite broke through, that don't mean that they don't know what they're talking about. There's a lot of guys who were trained by jabronis. Johnny Rods is in the WWE Hall of Fame. You talk to anybody else, like, oh, Johnny Rods is a jabroni. He never did anything. But he was a world-class trainer. And if you look up all the people he trained, so many. I think the Dudley Boys, and Taz, and Tommy Dreamer, and a bunch of other people that I can't think of off the top of my head. But he trained quite a few folks. And that ended up being his legacy. No, Johnny Rods was never world champion. Most of the guys who become world champions, they rarely actually train anybody anyway. They run a wrestling school where other people train folks. All right? That's the Shawn Michaels Institute or whatever, where mostly other people did all the training. He just did all the workouts. The Heart Dungeon was another one that was kind of like that. But I get what MJF is saying. But what my thought process is if somebody is able to do something for a long time, they know a lot about it. You know, maybe they didn't break through, but they know a lot about it. Like, how many world-class boxing trainers are former world champions themselves? Most of them were boxers, but they were lower level boxers. But they understand boxing on a scientific level, that they can help somebody. Maybe they don't have the physical gifts that other people have, you know? And that's something that really should be taken into account. Like, a lot of coaches are people who played the game, but they never played the game at a high level because they don't have the physical gifts that another player has, or, you know, they don't have the charisma, they didn't have the attitude, they didn't have the gimmick, it wasn't the right time. That sort of, there's a lot of things that could happen. But it's weird that he felt so comfortable coming out of the box saying this at the time when everybody is talking about AEW and their motto of "we don't take advice." Now he's saying, respect everybody, but you don't got to take everybody's advice. I don't have to listen to everybody. It's like, there's people who, again, worked for a long time. They never made it to your level, but they never got your opportunities either. Maybe they don't have your ability to talk. Maybe they don't have your friendships and your relationships that got you where you are. You have to take that kind of stuff into account. But I'm not saying you have to take all advice either. That's why I say that last line is absolutely true. You don't let anybody sun you. But you do, I think, it costs you nothing to listen, right? Whether you actually internalize it and use it or not, that's one thing. But it costs you nothing to let somebody talk, right? It costs you nothing to take advice and do with it as you will, you know? It literally doesn't cost you anything. But I get it, but I don't like it. I think that AEW is starting to really have this sort of I'm gonna do my own thing attitude, and it's not really working out when you look at how things are turning about in terms of, you know, TV ratings and attendance and how everything is trending downwards. Maybe you guys ought to start listening to people. You know, maybe you ought to start listening to people. And why would you put this comment out there when Tony Khan is hiring guys like Will Washington, who has never worked in the business at all before, and he's now in a position of authority in your company? Wow, I wouldn't post nothing like that, knowing that it's quite possible that, for starters, your boss doesn't have as much time in the business as you do. MJF literally has been wrestling longer than Tony Khan has been in the wrestling business. That's a fact, Jack, and he's only 26. All right? And Tony Khan's only been in the wrestling business for 4 years, and MJF's been wrestling longer than that. So, I'm telling you, you can't just have these flat comments and just throw this stuff out there, because you have to really consider who's going to be affected when you say stuff like this. This is why it's best, if you're frustrated about something like this, because maybe there is an agent or a producer or somebody who's never done shit and he's trying to tell you everything, it's best to keep it to yourself or to talk to somebody else about it. Like, why don't we have to listen to this fucking guy? I would never go public and say that there's somebody who could possibly be in a position of authority, or a peer, somebody who's in the locker room, who's trying to help you. And you're like, well, you're a jobber. You're a job guy. You don't know anything. You've been a job guy for 10 years. You know? Like, look at a guy like an AR Fox who's been on AEW's roster, right? He's been wrestling a long time. He's never been in WWE. I think he had a cup of coffee in TNA. This AEW run is as long as he's been, and he's trained some of the guys that are in AEW. Is he the kind of guy we should ignore? That's why you have to think about things before you do it. I know it's cocky to put your balls on the table and your ego out there, but you never know who you're offending, who you're pissing off, who you're running away from, who's going to see this and think that, oh, he thinks he knows everything. Because we don't know who you're talking about. You're being very vague. And plus, there's a lot of people who've been in the business a long time and don't know shit. You know, there's a lot of people who've been in this a long time that don't know shit, and people who got to a high level in the business who don't know shit. So you gotta take these days with a grain of salt. I just don't know why AEW, their guys, feel like they can get so comfortable to go out there and shit on people who are probably trying to help them. You know? I just don't see how that's gonna benefit you in the long run. You know? But maybe they know something I don't know. Maybe they got something to tell me. Let's get into this show. And really, it just occurred to me as I was preparing for the show. I kind of did a little perusing of Twitter, and one of the names that came up about a highly respected pro wrestler who could possibly be signed into AEW, a name I didn't even think about. And now that I thought about it, it put a smile on my face. Sami Callihan, who just recently left Impact. It could be Sami Callihan. Now, the reason why this is making me smile is because it's exactly what AEW deserves. That pig on a blanket, Sami Callihan, is exactly what AEW deserves. Oh my God. I am now officially hoping that it's Sami Callihan. I hope it's Sami Callihan. Oh, that'll be so much fun. All right. Speaking of Sami Callihan, he's very good buddies with a certain guy named Jon Moxley. And Jon Moxley was the first person. Well, he wasn't the first person to come out. I think Hook came out first. But Moxley was in the first match. Jon Moxley and Wheeler Yuta defeat Hook and Orange Cassidy. Yuta pinned Hook with some kind of roll-up. They call it the seat belt, which looks stupid. But this was after a Death Rider by Jon Moxley. They were fighting all over the building. In the first match, they were fighting all over the building in the main event. I'm starting to think 2019 AEW is back, where nothing makes sense, and we're just going to go out there and do our thing. You know? We could have made that street fight look more contrived if we did everything that's going to be in the street fight earlier in the night. So they fighting all around the building at the beginning of the show. Moxley also does the fake kicks to Orange Cassidy, the weak kicks. It was pretty funny. It's to see Orange Cassidy on the receiving end, without him starting it. After the match, Moxley says that Orange Cassidy ain't nothing, ain't never been nothing, and then he's going to grind Orange Cassidy into dust. Apparently, during the match, Orange Cassidy had hit an orange punch on Moxley and it didn't work. So he was looking outside the ring. He was spellbound by the idea that Moxley was not taken out by the orange punch. They're trying very hard to make this a storyline that you should care about. But I got a feeling. Oh, baby, I got a feeling that you don't care. And I don't care. So that's very unfortunate, but they're trying very hard here. They're trying very hard. It just ain't working. Omega and company were wearing suits to the arena. They had a weird name like the Golden Gondoku Dragons or some nonsense. I don't know what any of that crap meant. And I didn't care either. And it seemed kind of goofy, but this is AEW. What can you do? The Young Bucks defeated Pentagon Jr. and Commander. Government name Penta El Zero Miedo, otherwise known as Pentagon Jr. And the Young Bucks beat him in Commander in a match in which they flew all over the place, and then the Young Bucks cheated to win. After the match, they were backstage and said they don't give a damn about rules anymore, and they don't give a damn if people don't like what they say or what they do. Then Kenny Omega got in their faces and said, hey, you guys cheated in front of your family and friends. What's that all about? Because they're in Southern California, so you're supposed to care that, this is a home game for the Young Bucks. And Young Bucks says that, hey, everything's between us is still cool. Our heat is with Jericho. We don't like Chris Jericho. So Jericho pops up out of nowhere and calls the Young Bucks kids. And then as he tries to get Omega to leave, the Young Bucks punch him in the back of the head and they start to brawl. Now, you would think this would play into the main event, but nope. It sure didn't. It sure did not. It did not. Don Callis family versus Team Omega, the Golden Jets. Kota Ibushi and Big Show. Yeah, that's what it was. Big Show. All right, the street fight. Of course, they fought all over the place. Two big spots occurred in which Kota Ibushi emerged from, I guess, backstage, or he picked it up on the ramp, but he had a bicycle. And he's riding a bike down the ramp, and he lightly taps this guy with his pipe, like beep, and then he rides around the ring, beep, until he's ultimately clotheslined off the bike, landing squarely on his neck. And I just looked at this and said, oh yeah, 2019 AEW is back. Because this is 100, this is out of the Dippin' Dots era of AEW right here. This is crazy. All right. They are attacking each other with a bicycle. They're using a bicycle as a weapon. People are being hit with it. Kota Ibushi got a brain buster on it. This was so over the top. It was unhinged. And the crazy thing is, it was actually quite tame considering there was not blood. There was no blood. And there wasn't even the threat of blood in this match. It was just chaotic. Big Show and Powerhouse Hobbs ended up outside the arena, where people had to watch Hobbs pick up Big Show and slam him off of, I forget, it might have been some kind of van. And then he slammed him on top of a car. Now, this, of course, was the big bump that everybody wanted to see that took Paul White out of the match. So he was done after this. After he got body slammed on top of a car, that was it for him. Hey, that was great. I wish it had happened in front of people. You know, I really wish it had happened live in the arena. That would have been nice. Like, imagine if they'd have let those two have their space, and then Hobbs scooped up Big Show and slammed him through a table or something like that. I get wanting to do it on the car, do the big bump on the car, so you can write Big Show out of the match. But I hate that it happened backstage, you know. I think it would have been so much better if it had happened in front of people so they got to stand up like, oh, this is happening. And plus, it was just so chaotic in this match that it was something that should have been a bigger deal that ended up not being that big a deal because of all the other crazy stuff they were doing in this match. Ultimately, Brian Cage got pinned by Kenny Omega. Brian Cage was in this match because Sammy Guevara still got a headache. Apparently, he still got an owie in between his ears. That would be the only reason why he's not wrestling in right now, and that's okay. I can live in a world without Sammy Guevara. So after they won the match, Kota Ibushi emerges because he had fallen through a stack of tables and chairs as only he can, completely destroyed himself. He wakes up after the match and he's got like a broomstick or something like that. Like he's ready to continue fighting. And then Omega had to talk him down like, okay, the match is over. This was probably the purest AEW match that they've had in a long time. I mean, if you go back and watch like 2020, 2019 Dynamite, this fits right in. You have Big Show in it, who got no business being there. He adds nothing to the show. You got skinny nobodies like Kyle Fletcher. You know, you got all the attempted crazy spots going on. A lot of high flying, a lot of other weird stuff. Taking bumps onto weird objects while using weird objects. And it actually got the fans into it. So the fans was actually kind of sleepy through most of the show. But because so much was just happening in this match and it was just so busy, I think it reminded me certainly, of the AEW that they have been watching for a while. So I'll give them some credit for tapping into that old energy one time. But man, what chaos this was. Anyway, next. Hangman and Swerve did a face-to-face. They had a no contact rule. Everybody was going to get suspended and lose their job if anybody touched anybody. And this was basically just Hangman Page cutting a promo. Hangman Page says that Swerve Strickland is a dumbass. He's a grade A dumbass. Dumber than he was 2 years ago when he got fired. Then he says that Swerve Strickland can't cut it. He's not the man that he thinks he is. That's why his fiance left him and his kids don't want anything to do with him. Called him a coward. Says he surrounds himself with yes men and not family and friends. Then he says that Prince Nana is just living off of Swerve Strickland. He gets to come out here, do his silly dance and sell some t-shirts. And then he spends all his money on weed from a high school student. Then he says Swerve is a child and that he taught children lessons. And he's going to teach Swerve the most important lesson of all. He should have never come to his house. He also said that when it comes to Prince Nana, that he's going to beat his ass and steal his weed. To which Prince Nana was like, no, you're not. That was actually funny. I'm not going to lie. The whole thing about him beating him up and stealing his weed was actually funny. So Swerve like he was going to talk. Then he didn't. And then Hangman Page picked up the microphone again and said that him and Swerve, they have this no contact thing, but it doesn't apply to Prince Nana. So he beat up Prince Nana. Swerve couldn't stop him. And this led to him standing there while Nana gets his ass kicked. And security runs down there to separate them. So the security guards had to save Prince Nana because Swerve couldn't touch Hangman Page. Now that second part was actually very good. Having Nana out there basically, because he was in, Hangman's house too, so he was owed that beating. And Swerve was put in a position to be a eunuch where he couldn't stop him. So that was fun. Now the promo, I mostly thought it was okay. I thought it was a very fiery promo. Not sure I buy into this whole, I'm going to send you to hell, Hangman Page stuff. It's a little brutal for me. I don't know if I believe Hangman when he starts talking about sending people to hell and all this kind of stuff. It's a bit much. However, him saying that he's a coward because he surrounds himself with yes men and not family and friends. I actually felt that. You don't surround yourself with people who you love or who love you because you're afraid of that they might tell you something you don't want to hear. As opposed to yes men who will tell you whatever you want to hear. And because you're paying them, they will definitely tell you whatever you want to hear. I can appreciate that. I like that line. Okay, now the big line, of course, is that, Swerve is dumb. He's even dumber than he was 2 years ago when he got fired. And this seems to be, again, part of the humiliation ritual into AEW. And I say it every time. How many people have been released and or fired from WWE, ended up in AEW, and then some AEW wrestler threw that in their face? You got fired. You got cut. You can't shake it. Can't wait for Dolph Ziggler to come in the company and, a week in, 2 weeks in, maybe even 6 months later, you're an idiot, Dolph. That's why you zigged when you should have zagged. That's why you got fired. They do that to everybody. That's why you got fired. He should have said, well, I don't have friends who are the fucking EVPs. Because I guarantee you, if you didn't have friends who were the EVPs, you would have got fired too. Especially after the shit you started with CM Punk. They'd have fired your monkey ass too. But it was probably one of the better Hangman Page promos, if we're being honest. I actually like that Swerve didn't get to respond to. Because it didn't turn into a battle rap segment where everybody just has to stand there and listen to the other one cut promos. I'm not really a big fan of that myself. You want to do a dueling promo, as long as it doesn't get too personal, I don't mind it. I don't mind people arguing when there's, when the argument is necessary. But sometimes guys go way too far and it's basically battle rap. I'm going to kill you, fuck your mama and your sister, blow your head off. And you just stand there like, okay. I don't know about that. You got to have fighting words at some point. But Hangman Page had all these fighting words and basically dared Swerve to do something about it. And Swerve had to sit and stew in it. So that was pretty good. And it actually was a good counter to him being in Swerve's house. He basically humiliated him. Swerve being in Hangman's house. He basically humiliated him in California in front of everybody. So I actually like that segment. Roderick Strong backstage with the Kingdom. Roderick Strong says he's figured out who the devil is. He's going to tell his best friend. And then he had the television, I guess, call Adam Cole. Adam. I noticed that he's calling everybody weird like that now, which is even funnier. And then he says he's figured out who the devil is, and it's Max. Max is the devil. Adam Cole said Max is not the devil. And then he says that with all these accusations flying around, I'm starting to think you're the devil. Roderick Strong is perturbed by this. And then, of course, Adam Cole hangs up on him because he always does. And Roderick Strong is, upset because he's trying to figure out how to get Adam Cole to listen to him. Why won't Adam listen? Now, the whole devil storyline, there've been people that have been pitching 100 different folks for this. Every week I'm seeing new people. I saw somebody say it could probably be Pac. And you know what? I wouldn't hate that idea. I wouldn't hate Pac. Now, it wouldn't be long before he's injured again and he's, sitting at home, because that's everybody's story in AEW. But I wouldn't hate it if it was Pac. I would actually think that would be a good choice. He's one of the better options that I've saw. The idea that it could be Roderick Strong. It could be Roderick Strong in the Kingdom under the mask. That's possible too. I think of all the ideas that I've heard so far, I think Richard Holiday is a good one, and I think Pac is a good one. I think those two are legitimately really good. In terms of, Richard Holiday, it's a different situation because I'm not sure all of the AEW fans will get the story between him and MJF. But the AEW fan base is highly knowledgeable, so I would imagine that they would get it. But Pac, I'm pretty sure if you've been trying to get that guy to the main event level for a long time, I think Pac being the devil would be a very good option. And he's somebody I forgot about. But they haven't done too many really good hints about who it could be. So I'm really kind of like, I don't know. My thing is like, could it be Malachi Black? Wouldn't that be fun? That would honestly be fun if it was Malachi Black. I would love that. That would be a very good one too. If it was the House of Black that was actually, stole the devil mask and it was under the mask and all that kind of stuff, that would be sweet. Because that would be taking Malachi Black to the main event. I would like that too. Unfortunately, he just made the decision that Tony Khan made the decision. It was Aleister Black's idea that he would be Collision only. But I don't know. I like the idea of Malachi Black. I like the idea of Pac. But it seems like a lot of people are just jumping to conclusions. Like there's no real reason why it would be any of these people. Like I said, it would have been really nice if they hadn't talked about Wardlow and it was him. It would have been nice. It would have been great. Unfortunately, it is what it is. All right, Sky Blue defeated Red Velvet in the Rainbow match. The winner of this match was going to wrestle Chris Statlander and Julia Hart, who is from the House of Black. So he has Red Velvet, Sky Blue, and House of Black. Huh. And interestingly enough. Anyway. And the match is going to be a triple threat match at Full Gear. I don't know why it has to be a triple threat match. Julia wanted a rematch. Who said it had to be a triple threat match? I don't know, but that's what it is. Sky Blue and Red Velvet had a really long match. Brother, was it long. My goodness. It felt like this match was going on forever. And they were doing the little rolls in the ring where it's like one, and then they roll, one, and they roll, one. That got the crowd into it because they thought that was fun. But then they followed it up with a double high kick spot in which it was like a Fred Sanford punch that was nowhere near each other's heads, other body parts, or anything else. It's like they just both got up and just threw their legs in the air. And that was it. Sky Blue ends up winning with her finish. Poor Red Velvet. She's been here since the beginning. She can't get a push at all. I like her haircut. Her haircut's very nice. She makes her look very clean. You would think they would have done something with Red Velvet, considering how much loyalty she's shown to this brand. It made her a baddie for Jade Cargill, and Jade Cargill bounced. And now Red Velvet is kind of on her own again, lost in the shuffle. Very unfortunate. So now it's going to be Sky Blue versus Julia Hart versus Chris Statlander at the pay-per-view for the TBS title. Okay. Whatever you say, boss. Miro is, he's upset about CJ Perry. He says CJ Perry is bringing in the storm. She's always brought out the worst in herself, but she also brings out the worst in him too. Then he says that Daniel Garcia is going to see that he also brings out the worst in himself. And I'm like, what does Daniel Garcia got to do with CJ Perry hanging around with and being around Andrade El Idolo? Look at me. Look at me. Why does he got to get his ass kicked? Because Andrade, give me my mask. El Idolo is going to be hanging around your wife. Why do those two things have to occur? I don't know. Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. And it's okay if it doesn't. So Mariah May goes to meet her hero, Toni Storm. She goes as they open the door, the color sleeps out of the video. So every time they knocked on the door and Luther answered the door, it was in black and white. So eventually RJ City and Mariah May get into the room, and Toni Storm's on a fainting couch. And I mean, she's just completely splayed out here. I don't know if she's trying to sleep. I don't understand what's going on. Mariah May goes over and gushes over Toni, shakes her hand, says that she loves her, loves everything she's ever done. And, Toni Storm is like, yes, my dear, but I'm not doing autographs right now. And Mariah May's like, I don't really want an autograph, but, if she ever needs anything, she ever wants anything, let her know. And they go on from there. They are shuffled out. And then Toni wants a loofah, because I guess she's going to take a bath. And she wants a warm-up match for Rampage. And that she's going to get the human potato, Emi Sakura. Why risk? Why even have that girl take bumps? What is the point? If she beats Emi Sakura, so what? So, what's the point of that? Like, who cares? Anyway. They gave us the Mariah May Toni Storm thing. I like the Toni Storm idea of everything is going to be in black and white. You cannot see Toni Storm in color. That's a very WWE thing, and because it's so over the top with the gimmick, and I understand how people may hate that, which makes me beg the question: are they going to have her matches in black and white? Because if her matches are going to be in black and white, that could be fun, where they look like they're on a reel. That could be fun, to do something different for television. Clearly you can't do it in the real world, but if you could do it for television, that could be fun. If you could just have all of her matches in black and white, because even her packages, and like when you see her photos, her headshots and stuff like this, it's all in black and white, with the exception of like the red lettering. So you're doing like the noir thing where it's like black, white, and red. So it's nice. I actually got to give them credit for their attention to detail. Good job. Samoa Joe defeated a jobber, and this is the funniest jobber of all time. This guy, Samoa Joe, did his old walk-away spot, and the jobber was like, hey, where you going? Why Joe was in midair, like, hey, what's going on there? That was probably the funniest jobber spot I've seen in forever, bro. Man, get this jobber a job. Right? I'm talking long term. He needs to come back. When you're that good at jobbing, you got to do it professionally. All right? He's a good jobber. Samoa Joe, after the match, says that he wants to offer his friendship to MJF one more time, and then says that he is Samoa Joe. He is inevitable, whatever that means. This ties into MJF's promo at the end, where MJF channels John Cena, because he watched SmackDown 2 weeks ago, like we all did. So MJF says that his past is going to eventually catch up to him. All the things that he's done to other people starting to come back. Then he says that his friends keep getting hurt, so he apologized to the Acclaimed and says that he hopes that they get better. He says he always dreamed of being world champion. He's finally gotten there, but it ain't all glitz and glamour because everybody wants to knock him off his spot. And he says that he realizes that he could lose everything and that he's afraid of that. He's afraid of losing everything. He's afraid of letting everyone down. Aww, he's scared of letting you all down. Then he says that he's done letting his past define him. He is afraid, but you're going to need an army in order to stop him. And he fires up on the audience, and they're standing up, and they're like, yeah, MJF, MJF. I'm like, uh-huh. You watched that SmackDown promo from John Cena. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Show a little bit of vulnerability, then Superman on him. I see you. I see you. I respect it. I respect it. Then he said there's going to be hell to pay for the man who stole his mask. So then Jay White comes out there, says that MJF is always the villain. He's been the villain, always been the villain. And he said it himself that he is the devil. And then he said that the people mean nothing to him and he means nothing to these people. And he goes on and on about some other stuff, about how he's better than MJF and he knows it and the crowd knows it and the floorboards know it and I don't know, cameraman knows it, everybody knows it. And then they just attack MJF because eventually that's where we're going with this. MJF starts to fight them off to a degree until Juice Robinson punched him in the head. Then they beat up MJF and hit him with a switchblade. Then, I'm sorry, his switchblade is his nickname. His finisher is called the Blade Runner. And then they gave a faux 3 count, a fake 3 count, where I think one of the guns counted 3, or the Juice. And Samoa Joe was watching all of this occur on the screen. So, Samoa Joe was like, I could have helped you, but I chose not to. Because you would not extend your hand of friendship to me, MJF. And I'm like, okay. This MJF Jay White thing ain't working. It's not working. I don't know. I don't know if it's Jay White. I don't know what it is. But it ain't working. It ain't working. And this wasn't even the first time we saw a Bullet Club because we watched the Guns beat up a couple of jabronis earlier today. Or earlier in the shows, rather. They said, oh, this was 2-on-2. Imagine what's going to happen when it's 2-on-1. Like, yeah, you guys are going to lose. And it's going to kill the Guns. I hope they don't lose. I hope they win. I hope they win. Or are they going to do something slick and they're going to have Samoa Joe fight him fight them in this match. And then MJF's going to give Samoa Joe a title shot later. But, the Guns basically said they're going to win the tag team titles. The last thing we got here is Wardlow working out, saying that he saw fear in the devil's eyes and that the time is running out. The devil's reign over AEW is coming to an end. Then he says, by God is his witness, he's going to make the devil his bitch. Then we do more devil flickering or whatever. Okay. I don't know what Wardlow's waiting on. I don't know, is there something specific that he's waiting for before he puts his hands on MJF? I don't know. I like the Wardlow promo. He said he saw fear in the devil's eyes. Because MJF did look kind of scared. He looked kind of nervous. But, the old saying goes, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was getting you to believe that he didn't exist. And this whole devil thing is really the big hook going into the pay-per-view. Not even the match between MJF and Jay White, as I'm not sure that feud has any heat to it. It doesn't seem like it. Jay White doesn't get a ton of heat. He just kind of exists out there. So the big hook has mostly been this devil story. And they're trying to say, okay, including this devil story, then we got the new signing, and then You know, the Young Bucks, they put on, what was that, Instagram or Twitter or whatever, where they said either we wrestle our best friend or we not on the card. What's the option here? And I almost felt bad for them because you've seen that they have reached their peak and there's nowhere for them to go anymore. So now they have to basically just do whatever just to be on the card. It's like I said before, like it's beyond time for these guys to reinvent themselves and do something different. You know, if it's gotten that bad, then you guys need to reinvent yourselves worse than ever before. You know, but they're trying to sell this pay-per-view with surprises, the devil, the new signing, all this kind of crap, because there's seemingly nothing else on this card that's going to get you jazzed up and excited. You know, what is there? I mean, even some of the heels and some of the other top guys that they that they have been building up over time, they're not really featured. You know, FTR is in a fatal 4-way or something like that, and so is House of Black. And unless they add Miro and Andrade to the show, what's the point of this storyline right now? You know, I don't know, but Full Gear is a disaster. You know, it ain't gonna be like the worst show of all time, but it's clearly being carried mostly by the whodunits and who will it be sort of questions. And I'm thinking Survivor Series might end up being the same way, where it's going to be mostly a, you know, who is going to make their surprise return more so than anybody caring about any individual match on the show. And I'm not sure that's a good way to go about business. Surprises are supposed to add to the story. It's not supposed to be the whole story. That's like, you know, icing being the whole cake. It's like, no, icing goes on top of the cake. You know, you put your sprinkles and your chocolate and all that kind of stuff on top of your icing. The cake itself still has to be good. You know, in AEW, I don't know when the last time they built a pay-per-view card and I thought it was like, oh, this is great. I look at every pay-per-view card like, damn, you probably could have took 2 or 3 matches that you had on Dynamite, put them on this card, and it would have been so much better. If they just saved Samoa Joe versus Keith Lee for this show, for Full Gear, would have been so much better. They could have did that street fight on Full Gear and probably had blood and some more stuff. But they chose to put it on Dynamite, which I ain't mad at. So I'm just looking at it saying, they've been doing this for a while now. They give fairly decent matches away on TV, but then they sell you absolute trash. You know, he's selling you trash, like literal butt cheeks. So it's unfortunate, but I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, I wouldn't, if I was the kind of person who would pay for a pay-per-view, I wouldn't pay for this one. I really wouldn't. There's nothing going on. This show is low energy. So it is what it is, man. I didn't like any of the matches tonight. I laughed I liked the Samoa Joe versus the Jobber because the Jobber was funny. Outside of that, I didn't like any of the matches tonight. The angles, what angles really? I guess Hangman Page's promo was good, but I didn't really like anything else that was going on this show. But let me know what you guys think. You guys probably like more than I did. You're very nice guys. That's why you always hit the like button and you always subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.